Let's talk to Professor of Forecasting and Innovation, specialising in energy, Professor James Woudhuysen. Good evening, James, and a very happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, Kevin.
What do you make of this? This is just ridiculous, isn't it? Why are we giving, millions of pounds to China for their to give them solar energy?
Well, you may well ask. I mean, the sums in the scheme of things are fairly small, right? They're 86 million
My
pounds.
question, though, is why any money at all?
No. Well, look, let's just try to put it in context, Kevin, because it's easy to rush
Okay.
to impulsive, impressionism.
In my impulsive way, yes, go on.
No, I wouldn't say that. But, the point is, over 5 years, globally, 86 million pounds, it's 86 million pounds more than it needs to be. I'm sure of that, Kevin, you're right. But it's not exactly, big stakes money. Now, I think the more substantial thing to ask is, what are these projects that they are financing, and why is the Foreign Office committed to this absurd enterprise of us trying to rescue India and China, even in a modest way, because every little bit helps, from the disaster of climate change that faces us all. At one level, you can say that they're just trying to impress the Indians and the Chinese, right? By scattering £80,000 here, £80,000 there. But more convincingly, I think, they're trying to impress themselves. If you go to Foreign Office and the Foreign Office, and, I've been on British Council jamborees before now to Brazil, or one of them at least. If you go to the Foreign Office website and you key in, climate change, the main discussion is about the low carbon output from Foreign Office real estate in Britain and around the world, right? They are very concerned about their naval's footprint, really. I don't mean their military naval, I mean their naval. So, we missed that one anyway.
Yeah, I get it.
If your driving ambition is only climate change, which it is for the Foreign Office, then it follows, as they glumly said at the end of their statement to the Sun, the UK will continue to work with all countries to drive action to tackle climite change.
Yeah, they don't talk like that, James, at the Foreign Office.
No, but
the UK will continue to work with.
No, I think you're wrong. I think they're dumber and less diplomatic, less rapier-like in wit, and they've just got one objective, which is, if it's low carbon, it doesn't matter where the heck it is. It could be in Xinjiang with the Uyghurs. We'll still finance it, because it's got to be good.
That's it, isn't it? It feeds into our obsession with polishing our own halo about our green initiatives and how green we are. This kind of fallacy, this fantasy that we feel that even though any effort we make here in this country to reduce our carbon emissions will make no difference to the world's pollution problem whatsoever, because we only produce 1% of the world's pollution. We kid ourselves, we fool ourselves that because we are busting our backsides over this, that Xi Jinping in Beijing will look over at London and go, my God, they've given me a guilty complex. I'll sort out China's emissions. It's nonsense, isn't it?
I think there's much more interesting stuff to go through than the familiar agenda of virtue signaling and all of that, or the familiar critique, I should say. I think if you look at those projects, let's look at them once again. First of all, they're all about solar and wind, right? Which in India's case, which has a lot further to go in urbanization, is broadly a decentralized program for local energy regeneration of a renewable sort. And it's really aimed at keeping the country villagers, because there's one thing that program endorsed by the United Nations, the EU, and Britain, in India, Africa, everywhere else, you can say is it's not going to industrialize any of those countries or those villages anytime soon. It may be a solar panel on the roof to keep your hot water and a bit of LED lighting. But development, urbanization, modernity, industrialization for dirt poor farmers in India the Western program is not going to bring that. And UN aid, British aid, EU aid, it is just not just virtue signaling, but it's an insult, really, to the ambitions of millions and millions of Asians. And the second thing is that if you look at the project, they're all about carbon trading in South China, Kevin. They're all about climate finance and Rishi Sunak. They're not about development. They're about funny business.
Let me ask you this, James, to widen the discussion. Foreign aid in general, for the average citizen in this country, it's a source of irritation and mystery. And the mystery being, to talk about the money we give to, why do we give money to two countries with space programs, i.e. India and China? A few years back, we literally 100, but this is true, we gave China, I think it was, a matter of a few £100,000, it might have even been $1 million, to help certain members of the Chinese community learn how to grow rice. Can you believe that? This is so foreign aid. What is foreign aid for? Because
Kevin, the point is that I try to make is it says much more about the Foreign Office and ourselves, whatever the accent that we may affect, than it does about China or helping Chinese people. I like you, I don't like Xi Jinping nor Narendra Modi. Do I think the Indian farmers had a grievance that I was delighted Modi conceded to eventually after a lot of strike action? Yes. Do I think 1.x billion Chinese deserve better in terms of energy supply and all the rest of it than they get at the moment from the CCP? Yes. Are we the people to bring them that better energy supply? Certainly not. How ridiculous. We can barely organize our own. So let's get that straight.
So do you think then, to try to explain the apparent nonsense of giving money to the Chinese to help them grow rice, is foreign aid effectively just to grease the wheels of international diplomacy, to make Xi Jinping look favourably on us for big trade deals? Is that what it's for?
Well, it's a little bit for that, and there is a sort of commercial drive to Foreign Office operations for at least 10 years now. I think William Hague brought that in, if I'm not mistaken, reversing Robin Cook's historic ethical foreign policy, Kevin, if you remember that far back. But as I say,
remember that, yeah.
It's more about trying to convince themselves and the world, as they were trying to do at COP26, not so much of Britain's virtue, but of our leadership, of our responsibility, of our setting an example, of punching above our 1% weight, right? We might only be responsible for 1% of carbon emissions, but the argument goes, but what a great job we're doing. We really
are. Well, listen, I've got one last random question, James.
Please.
To your knowledge, do we receive any foreign aid, from the likes of China or India? Do we get any money from foreign countries?
And not as far as I know. We used to get, depressed regions, I think, used to get a little bit of EU money, whisper it quietly, I suspect,
right. But China doesn't give us any money. India doesn't give us any money.
No, not in a hurry. India helped save JLR, right? Yeah. Jaguar Land Rover. Yeah. And let's not forget that. Yeah. That's an index of its power.
Yeah. Interesting.
But no, it is all very ironic, Kevin. You're right to fasten upon
it is funny. I want to get you back on soon. I want to discuss similarities between Modi and Xi Jinping.
That's very interesting.
Let's do that soon. Thanks so much for your time. Always a pleasure to talk. That's James Woudhuysen, Professor of Forecasting and Innovation. He specialises in energy.